G'day and welcome to my one-point grammar lesson. While we don't all need to be grammar experts, we can always gain a little more respect from others by reducing the number of simple errors when we write. Today, we're going to continue looking at the difference between and the. Last time, we looked at whether the item said after and the was clear to the listener or not. Today, I want to develop this a little further and discuss place names and whether we use or the when talking about them. The key here is to ask yourself whether the other person knows where you are talking about. Now last time I mentioned that it wouldn't be best to say, I want to buy the chair, because we need to make which chair clear. This is still true, but when we talk about place names, it isn't always necessary to add that extra information. A classic example is the difference between these two sentences. I live in a white house. There are probably millions of people around the world who could say this. There are plenty of white houses. On the other hand, if you were to say, I live in the White House, well, there are only a handful of people who can say that, because we all know that the White House is where the President of the United States lives. There is no need to add the extra piece of information on the side. A more common example is when we talk about places we go to regularly. If I say, I am going to a supermarket, then I'm not being specific about which one I am going to go to. However, when I say, I am going to the supermarket, I assume the person who is listening knows which supermarket I am going to go to, because it's the same one I always do my shopping at. How about a bank? If you were to ask someone you did not know, how far is it to the bank? They would probably ask you, which one? Because they don't know which bank you usually go to. So a bank would be better in this situation. However, if you were asking a friend, colleague, or family member who knew which bank you usually use, then you would probably use the bank because they know which one you are talking about. Now this is where it gets a little trickier. What about school? Would a teenager say to his or her parents in the morning, I'm going to go to a school, or I'm going to go to the school? Well, depending on the situation, I guess either are possible, but the most common answer would be neither. I'm going to school. This is because for places that people go to regularly, don't need a or the before them. However, these places are limited to just a few, such as work, church, hospital, and of course school. So there you have it. When deciding between a and the or nothing with places, just ask yourself whether the listener knows exactly which place you are talking about. I'm going to take a bit of a break from a and the next time, but we'll get back to it in the future. In the meantime, watch those simple mistakes and get more respect from those reading what you write and listening to what you say.